What is crack-a-lackin', everybody? John Ramdeen, Robin Black, chilling out in downtown Toronto, chatting about some of the coolest fights.
We got Instagram Live.
Known to man, his Instagram live thing going on. We're talking about a 185-pound fight.
We got Pluto also. Pluto, right here.
185-pound fight featuring the former 170-pound champion taking on a former 205-pound fighter and Tim Boetsch, the Barbarian. You're not a Johny Hendricks guy.
What leads you? What makes you?
You called him fat. You called him a lazy prick because he missed weight a couple of times.
I'm not a weight missing guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a Johny Hendricks guy.
Yeah.
I'm just,
are you entertained by Johny Hendricks when you see that he's on the docket? You're like, oh my God, let's clear my schedule. I need to see Johny Hendricks fight. If it's against Kelvin Gastelum, yes.
Yes. If it's against Kelvin Gastelum, yes. Kelvin Gastelum is so good. It's crazy. Yes, I don't know. That's a really good point. The boxer wrestler thing, I think, had got a little bit tired for me. I think we had seen that game played for a long time, and by the time Wonder Boy was ready to kind of finish that and kind of put that away and end that, I think I was ready to see that go. But Johny Hendricks has had some brilliant moments, and the couple left hands that he laid on guys and just laid them out, that's impressive. Johny Hendricks, showed you how to wrestle in mixed martial arts.
Did he beat George? When you think back to his fight with George St. Pierre, it's hotly debated. I know there are a lot of most Canadians out there think George won. Most Americans out there think Johny Hendricks won. What do fighters and coaches? What do they think is, I think, one of the most valid opinions for me?
So the only round in debate is round one.
Round one.
So even though Hendricks clearly won 2 rounds, they were 10-9 rounds. He may have won them by smashing George's face up extra, but they were 10-9 rounds. And George clearly won 10-9 rounds. Maybe not as good, but 10-9 rounds. Yes, and doing what he did. So rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't think anybody in the world that knows anything about fighting debates that they each won 2 of those. It was round 1 in debate. George was in control of a lot of round 1. The main damage that Hendricks did was the old Travis Brown on Josh Barnett or Travis Brown on Gabriel Gonzaga, smashing elbows to George's head against there. That was the heaviest damage. I thought George won, but George is my friend. I am a Canadian. I admit my biases color my vision. One of the things I do believe is I heavily believe in Big John McCarthy's understanding and comprehension and top-level knowledge about reffing and judging. And Big John thought Hendricks won. And so I'm not here to undermine Big John. The record books say that George St. Pierre won that fight. And he did.
And like I said, he's American. He picked Johny Hendricks. You're Canadian. You picked George.
Sure.
That's the way things work. That's one of the things about MMA is it's subjective. What are you looking for? We're not in there to feel the damage.
In the end, though, whether it's in 2 years or 5 years or 20 years, George won that fight. And that sucks if you're Johny Hendricks. It sucks for everyone who's ever been on the wrong end of a decision, but this is a part of the sport. You have to accept it in your life. But Johny Hendricks versus Tim Boetsch, I mean, size is going to be the big part of this conversation. Boetsch has not always been the most, elite wrestler. Boetsch has at times been taken advantage of on the ground. Do you remember Handsome Luke Rockhold? That is his name, right? Handsome Luke?
Well, it is now.
It is now. Handsome Luke Rockhold really showed you what some people can do to him on the ground. But then Handsome Luke is a huge man.
And he's a legit jiu-jitsu guy. Like his jiu-jitsu guys are the Mendez brothers. And, when you talk about the top of the food chain, that's what that's what these guys are. So, he talked to us about the fight with Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and it's not as if he was afraid to tangle with him on the ground. He's like, I'm going to show you that there's different fucking levels of jiu-jitsu. I'm going to smash this guy. He's going to fall down, and I'm going to make him look like a sieve. People just underrate, certain fighters' their individual skills because you see Luke Rockhold is this tall kickboxer.
Right. So we've got a couple of points that people have made here on Instagram Live, and we'll try to get the word out in as many different ways as possible when we're doing these live. Carlos Condit. That's a brilliant win. That's great point, my friend Muhammad. Muhammad Jui 7. Johny Hendricks beat Carlos Condit fair and square, beautifully. Great fucking win. What about against Lawler? I mean, I don't remember for sure because it was so long ago, but who won number 2 in your opinion? Lawler
it was so close.
Over number 2 in round 5. If you remember back, Lawler folded slightly in round 5 in number 1, and in number 2, remember him coming out just physically ready. Like, he had dreamed, and he won fights to get the chance again to find himself in round 5, where he was never going to find himself underperforming in the most important 5 minutes of his life again. And he smashed Hendricks in round 5. That was actually brilliant for him, but brilliant for Hendricks to win the first one.
And that's what I love.
When you show these, Hendricks, of course, had brilliant moments.
And it's not just even the moments. The fact that Johny Hendricks has been in there a couple of times with Robbie Lawler, champion. A couple times, or with George St. Pierre, the greatest of all time, certainly at 170 pounds. Carlos Condit, champion. Stephen Thompson. The guys that Johny Hendricks steps into the cage with and does battle are the top of the top of the top of the top. So you have to give Johny Hendricks credit for that. But again, does size matter? And in this fight, what do you expect? Is it Johny Hendricks just going to be pot-shotting Tim Boetsch? Is he going to try to out-wrestle Tim Boetsch? What is the strategy if you are Johny Hendricks? Are you just going to try to flow? You're going to try to tag this guy? You don't think he's going to be as fast as you? You don't think he's going to be as disciplined, as skilled, as technical?
So Johny Hendricks really, all of these great fights we've discussed, all the way to winning the title against Lawler, arguably winning it against George, beating Condit, what he is and what he was, and although we talk about growth a lot, what I suspect he will be is a combination of real power in wide punches, although he took out Fitch with a pretty narrow, I think there was an angle on the outside too. Campman, but wide power punches from southpaw, and phenomenal wrestling. And most importantly, the third element was the blending of the two, leveraging one against the other. That's what he's been. And could he be something else? Of course he could. Am I expecting it? I'm not. I'm expecting him to play those strengths for the rest of his career. Not because he can't change, but because at this point, when you're no longer fighting to cut weight, you're no longer going to super gyms, you're no longer moving away from your family and referencing how much your wife and your family need you, and that's real. This is your life. You're not finding new ways to grow and new ways to reprogram and recalibrate your weapons. So I expect him to be a big, powerful, pot-shotting left hands, using those to push Boetsch back and then get the chance to take him down where he can and beat him up on the ground if he can. And he might be able to do that. He might. But Tim Boetsch hits hard, is very ornery, ain't fucking around, can throw 205-pounders through the air, and is coming to win.
Johny Hendricks is one of those reasons why I tuned into the WEC. Of course, it was for Pettis and Cerrone and Aldo and Faber and Dominic Cruz. But they were showing, the WEC was showing that they had legitimate talent at 170 pounds, being Carlos Condit and Johny Hendricks and others. John Alessio, for example, Canadian great. And I always thought, because of Johny Hendricks, his coachability, because of his wrestling background, and the fact that he's faced all those guys, you have to put the time in the gym. You're going to learn new tricks and tools. Aren't you fucking tired of throwing jab, cross, hook a million times? Isn't there a point where you're like, I want to do something different?
Yeah. It depends. There's one conversation that we've come back to a lot of times, and that is Joseph Benavidez saying when he's done fighting, he's not going to train anymore. If you're that guy, if you're not desperately curious, if you're not doing it because of an obsession and love of the martial arts, if you're doing it as your job, maybe not. A lot of people go into their job and do their job. Work hard at it, show up every day, give your best effort, and do what you should do. And if you're one of those guys, and Hendricks feels like one of those guys, you see the interviews, and he says, hey, AKA said they'd love to have me, but my wife needs me with the family right now. That's real. That's your family. Your family can and should be the central part of your life. And yes, when you are going to be the greatest basketball player or singer or businessman or fighter in the world, you need to make your family second for some part of your life. But he did that. He's done that.
He's done that.
It's time to go and be with his family. And when you do that, you show up and you work your ass off every day for your wife and your kids, and you keep building the things, stay as ready and tough and prepared as possible, and you show up and you fight your ass off. And that's what I expect from him. And Tim Boetsch is kind of the same guy, only way bigger. So it's going to be a really cool fight. And when you look at it at that route and you look at Johny Hendricks that way, I'm glad we had this conversation because I already like Johny Hendricks more than I did 12 minutes ago.
Big Rig takes on the Barbarian at 185 pounds. Will the former 170-pound champion be able to impress when he takes on the battle-tested Tim Boetsch?